this is Leslie McKee calling.
Hi, Leslie. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Day of interviews back to back today, so it's awesome.
Keeping you busy, huh?
Well, then I stay in mode and, because otherwise, I'll be working on other things and then have to stop in my tracks and go, okay, hold on. Yeah, I'm back on radio. Okay.
Oh,
Well, it's good to meet you. I haven't been able to talk to you before, and I'm excited because you have some really, really great music. And I was trying to decide, like, I almost heard one artist, and then it kind of went another direction. I felt like I heard a slight bit of Carrie Job, and then it would go a little Natalie Grant, like, um, so I mean, that's kind of the sound it is. I really love the music. Another Mile is amazing. What You're Made. Um, there's just so many great songs that I've seen on here, and I like I like to go and like search through your old stuff too. So, but Someone to Call Your Own is very beautiful. Um, I was just looking back at some of them that I looked, and Never Too Far. I went back and, like I said, I looked at a little bit of everything that you've done, and I love what love looks like. That there's every one of them has kind of a different message behind it. And I will tell you that when I saw your press release and they approached me about interviewing you, I said, I your story spoke to me because my son kind of went through something similar to what you did, but I'd like to kind of hear from you, like how because you had music back in 2009 and called True to You, but then you took kind of a break. But during that, there were several things that happened. So I'd like for you to kind of share your testimony of what happened.
sure. Yeah, it's quite a long stretch between the EP with True to You and then for this new album release. Not necessarily by desire, but it turned out to be that way by design. And um, we were able to do the single with what love looks like, which you had mentioned just a little bit ago. But um, to take on a project like this, it really is a big ordeal as far as finances and time.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Personally, emotionally, to anytime you put that much money and heart and everything into something like that.
so that was one of the factors in the amount of time between that EP and this album. But one of the big ones came from just a personal experience that we had. This was probably about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. Um, I served in church ministry for years, just not on staff, but we had felt led to apply for a position in the church community that we were involved in at the time, and had been encouraged to do so and led to believe that was going to fall into place. And coming from that was the hope of, an extra income coming in, that we could actually start on this album. And things came to a really abrupt halt with that. And while I look at it and I can see a very clear answer to prayer from God in the midst of it, I did not expect it to be quite as painful as it was. And it coming from within a church community, I think made it feel a little bit harder because there was trust that was violated, and just dishonesty and things that you just don't expect to encounter in the place that's supposed to be a safe place for you.
Well,
to
it's
be
literally supposed to be a sanctuary. How did how did that affect you, and how did you kind of come back from that?
Right. Well, its effect on me was very harsh. I tend to be a little prone to depression, as it is, but this experience just really sent me to a dark place. I started having a lot of anxiety and a lot of problems with self-esteem and worth, and I really started to feel isolated. And I say that I do have several close friends that I could confide in, and my husband was very supportive, and he was right there in the thick of it with me. But as I've shared with some others, it's kind of a situation where, all right, here I was, it's happened in the church, and the people that I would have turned to in the midst of a crisis, I can't go to, you know?
Yeah.
And then to have it be something to talk about just didn't feel right, because in my heart, I did not want to bring any shame or disgrace on the church, or have it reflect in a negative light on Christ at all. We know that Christianity in the church already is looked in such a harsh light these days, and so it was just hard to know how to process it. And I think that just that loneliness and that just aided in the depression. And honestly, whenever I started having these issues with trust with the leadership in the church, it started to affect me with trusting God. And it sounds terrible to say that.
No, because but honestly, that's how they've been entrusted. They've been entrusted with being the shepherd to the flock. And when it is a human thing for you to kind of equate your disappointment in Christianity with your disappointment in someone who's leading the church. Or
well, it was definitely a challenge. We had left that community, and it was somewhere we had been for nearly 20 years. So it was really hard to pull the family and start over again. And I can tell you, it's quite a learning experience from somebody who's been for most Sundays at that point in time on the platform leading worship, and not necessarily always being able to have that fellowship time that can go with the service time. It was an experience to be on the other end as a visitor, and just to feel those things that people feel whenever they're looking for a home church. But that's kind of taken a little bunny trail away from where we were headed. But the good thing is that we have a God who loves us where we're at, and in the midst of my doubts and my confusion, and honestly, some days just sobbing and not knowing how to pray, I spent a lot of time in Psalms and just pouring through those, and he just continued to draw me closer to his heart. And I'm glad that he didn't turn away in the midst of that. And even more so that he helps me to hear his voice, that voice that speaks truth above all the lies that I was feeling, that I was telling myself. And it's just like Satan to want us to be in that place.
He works his best stuff in the church. I mean, he is really, and people act like, he can't penetrate the walls of the building. The building is still full of sinners. So his impact is seemingly, if he can twist a believer and make them doubt and make them, even turn others against him or anything. He's more powerful to do something like that than to take someone who doesn't even believe in God. It's an attack. It's just, you feel like it's, I'm glad you had your husband, because some people don't. Some people, I was a single mom, and for me going through that, it was like, go trying other churches, and your kids having to like, okay, what is this one like? How you feel? Because you're kind of always like, what is it like? we only had one person say hi to us. Is that bad, or is that just an off day? Or I mean, churches need to realize that every single person walking in that door could be someone who is one step away from suicide, or leaving their spouse, or just, they lost a loved one or something. There's so much brokenness in the world that whether we're congregants or we're praising on the worship stage, or teaching Bible study, we got to be, very aware of all that every time someone comes into our life. And I think you've definitely realized that by now, that it's a huge undertaking. But nevertheless, I mean, when God appoints you there, you can disappoint people, but for people to completely lose trust in you, that's something that obviously they'll be accountable for. But you had 20 years with that church, that's your family, and then you don't want to cause dissension when you leave, and it's like you're breaking up, and it feels like a breakup. And then some friends still talk to you, some don't know how to talk to you because they're afraid, to ask about anything, like, because they don't want to get in the midst of any drama. So it's there's so many awkward steps when you leave a church and then find another one. And now your new album, Another Mile, like, what is that based on? What is the Another Mile, that concept?
Well, pretty much the song, and then the title track for the CD, just the message of taking things step by step. Yeah, we're gonna face these hard times, but just hold on a little longer. And with Another Mile, for me, I think some of my processing through where I was at. Now, this is not a song that I personally was involved with writing, but it was one that I identified with significantly. But for me, in taking those steps, I needed just to take time to step backwards a little bit, perhaps, and just really spend time just soaking
Yeah.
in His Word and His presence, and as I mentioned earlier, just trying to hear His voice above everything else that was trying to fill my head with negativity. And then it's taking that step of just complete surrender and taking His hand and letting Him lead. Not knowing where things are headed, and just knowing that no matter what, He's there. So lots of steps, and surrendering, and just acknowledging His sovereignty over everything. This song just kind of just chronicled where I was at, and then the steps that I needed to take to get to a healthy place. But the album as a whole has turned out just to be a project that I hope just helps bring hope and encouragement to people who are struggling, because the days can be hard and they can be long, and there's no guarantee that that we'll see solutions or resolutions to problems while we're here physically on this earth. But we always have that hope to cling to, that we're secure in our eternity with Him, because of the salvation we receive through Him.
And so was it hard to, after a few years of, not doing music professionally, was it hard to get back in, or did you kind of jump in with both feet?
Well, I say we, but when I felt God was telling us it was time, it was challenging. I had been singing, I had still been doing concert ministry and leading worship for places, so I had still been using my gift. I
Right.
just was not, recording and getting new music out there. So once we felt He said go, there were some challenges still to come, and one of them was vocal health for me. I ended up with a couple back-to-back respiratory infections that just wiped me out, and kind of coincided with the times that things were supposed to be happening with tracking days, vocal days, and one of the songs that we were doing vocals on in the midst of that was the one called "What You're Made Of," and I was still. This was a couple years into the journey I was on, but I was still working through healing, and I was still working on embracing those lyrics that say you're beautiful, you're good enough, you have purpose. And so to still be working through that, and then having this weakness vocally, when we did this song the first time, for my vocals to be on the actual track, I bombed. It was really bad.
Oh no.
And the producer was saying, I really just don't think this song is for you. We had a group from the National Praise and Worship Institute already lined up to do some gang vocals on some songs, and this was one of them. And we just went ahead and had them do their part. We didn't know at the time if the song would even make it on the track listing, but I went back a few months later and worked with a vocal coach who also turned into be a mentor in my life, and just helped me by pouring truth into my life. And that was probably a bigger help to me than the vocal help.
Right.
But ultimately, I was able to get through the song without just completely breaking down and sobbing. And it's kind of neat to see what has happened with the song. It's one that was chosen for radio promotion, and people just connect with it. And I hear lots of comments about it. So to have this song that was like the biggest obstacle for me,
be the one that impacts.
yeah. So just some cool things like that has happened along the way.
So your album is out and available on, I'm guessing, all digital formats.
Yeah, it's out there.
And do you have a website for people if they want to learn more about you, or to get your information on your social media and your music and things like that?
Yep, it's LeslieMcKee.com.
And it's McKee as in MCKEE, because I would myself, I think I would say KEY. So just to make sure people have that. Your first name's easy, but just making sure the last name. So it's just .com.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And
links to the songs, links to social media, everything's there. And there's a contact form if anybody wanted to reach me for anything.
And so, do you have a favorite on the album? Do you have a favorite song, or not necessarily?
This is always a tricky question for me because I have a lot of favorites on the album.
That's a good thing.
I really like the whole album.
Well, that's a good thing too.
To pick out one, I would probably lean toward "What You're Made Of."
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I kind of lean toward. I like the message of that. Is just really, it's amazing. I have a more interesting or fun question for you. I like to ask people if you could collaborate for a song or even for a concert with someone, like an artist. Is there anybody you would just love to collaborate with?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Actually, there's probably a couple. Natalie Grant.
Yeah, duh. I mean, everybody wants to work with her. She's amazing.
Oh, yeah. But Stephen Curtis Chapman is kind of my singer-songwriter hero. Has been for years and years, and that would just kind of be like a dream. Really, one of the stories that I identify with because of another experience in the midst of all this was with disciples on the lake whenever Jesus walks on the water and calls Peter out and whatnot. But he says to them, he says, "It's all right. I'm here. Don't be afraid." And I think we just need to remember to keep our eyes on him. And
don't you feel we're always kind of doing that? Like, the boat's being tossed around and we're freaking out, even though we know God's right there. And, Jesus is sleeping on the boat, and I mean, he's right there. He can blink and stop everything. He can, if you died, he can bring you back. I mean, like, but he's literally in the boat with you. But, and people are like, oh my goodness, they had no faith. And you're like, well, he's everywhere. He left us with the Holy Spirit that's in us. I mean, like we have an experience that's even beyond that, and we still like, oh my goodness, the boat's rocking, and God, don't you see this? And as if He doesn't see any of it, and we can easily judge Peter and lots of people in the Bible, that have these times of lack of faith. I wouldn't have fallen. I'd have just kept walking on the water. And you know what? They only one of them got out of the boat.
yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I would hope that I would get out of the boat, but at the same time, I'd be like, there's sharks somewhere, I mean, I'm sorry. I would probably wrestle with it. I'd either wrestle with it or I'd just like walk right out. I don't know. But you think but when you're faced with things, we don't really have problems when you live in the States. You go to third world countries or even see what's going on in other countries, and you know we don't have problems in relation, but we make really big deals out of things and act like God doesn't see any of it, and we all do it. And we just have to constantly, and sometimes it takes, like the faith that we had on the last 5 miles is not the faith that we're going to have in the next.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to meet you and talk to you, and I'll share the interview with everybody on social media and everything, so you can share the interview and let people hear your story. And I'm just really glad to meet you, and glad to have your
Likewise.
music. Yeah, and keep doing music as much as you can, and keep sending it to us.
Well, that's my hope. So, but yeah, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed